Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another special report of Weed Talk News, something we're going to try and do once a month here on the network. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and the executive producer of that weekly news show we call Weed Talk News. And we are very excited now to welcome in three other people. It's interesting. Washington State has been dominating these conversations. Okay, I just want to say, and we have two more people from Washington State. Miggy, who won't tell me his last name, but we're going to call him Miggy 420. He's a regular on the Cannabis Legalization news that runs live on YouTube, and he's there with Thomas Howard as his cohort, and they do that every Sunday. And David Paleschuck, did I do it right?
You did.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And Tina Tasaka is here from Nevada, and as she likes to say, the 702, because that is the area code of Las Vegas, Nevada. Right, Tina?
Indeed.
I've learned so much. All right, Miggy, I know how you got involved a little bit with watching great programs, because you've been watching Pro Cannabis Media grow over the last 3 or 4 years, but how did you and Thomas Howard get connected? And how did you end up being his cohort on that show?
Activism. I've been doing this since I had hair on top of my head. So, I helped get signatures for Prop 215. I've been doing online trolling for a long time. And then Tom, he actually had a different pen name when he started doing his thing. And so eventually he decided, hey, let's do he went from banking, being a regular Joe, to a cannabis type lawyer, and he asked me to help him promote his company. None of this in my space. I don't have anything for sale. I've always been doing activism, and but now I'm about to have a store with him. So right. It's kind of a little different perspective now, coming from both the consumer side and also like now it might affect my bottom dollar one day.
Yeah, and welcome to the club, because it's still the toughest freaking thing you'll ever do in your life. Yeah. Running a dispensary and getting licensed and staying compliant and dealing with all the BS, if you will.
Sure.
Tina, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your background, because I know that's always been intriguing to me.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for pulling us together. This is always great to have have these shows. I love doing it. So, well, I was in gaming and hospitality for 35 years, and then I jumped into the cannabis green train in 2018. And I'm on the technology side. I was selling a seed to sale system. And then I decided to go off on my own, and I am going to be building a tech platform for the cannabis lounges called 420 Table. So like Open Table, you can book a reservation and be compliant and be regulatory. So as these cannabis lounges start to grow, and it's a little bit of a slow grow right now, but hopefully in the future, we'll have thousands of them across the globe. I want to be that platform that you're booking a reservation on. But also, I'm one of the correspondents for Pro Cannabis Media for Nevada. So right. I report the news for Nevada. But I've got my hands in some other media that I do, a little bit of media on the side. And but I also help hotels, resorts, and casinos if they want to bring in a cannabis beverage, for example. How can they do that legally, and how can they be profitable? I can help a resort or a casino do that. That's what I'm doing.
That's fantastic. Sounds like fun work, And
definitely fun every day.
David, I'm gonna pull your book. We have an author with us, folks. Okay, this is hot off the presses too, isn't it, David?
It is. It's about a month old now.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you did write this book. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, primarily I'm a branding and marketing consultant. I've worked for over 25 years at American Express, MasterCard, Pepsi, and Microsoft. On the day that the I-502 law was passed here in Washington State in 2012, I left Microsoft to get into the cannabis industry. And I basically consulted and have created a number of brands within the state and then licensed them out of the state. I wrote a book, I guess it's 3 years ago now, called Branding Bud, the Commercialization of Cannabis, which is the first book on cannabis branding. And I just wrote this and released this, Cannabis versus Marijuana, Language, Landscape, and Context, because I just basically saw the vocabulary that the industry was using. And it just dawned on me, quite frankly, that if we are to really build bridges and convert or convince those people that are outside of our industry, we really need to start using words that they relate to, words that they understand. And even further, there are words that we use in our industry which are just, quite frankly, wrong. So, some of the issues I address in the book are, well, obviously, one is cannabis versus marijuana, adult use versus recreational use, use versus consume, indica versus sativa, strain versus cultivar, and I could keep going. But there's just a number of words that we seem to either misuse or misappropriate or abuse sometimes that I thought it was important to get us all on the same page, especially since, we're globalizing now. Cannabis is legal in more places than it ever was before, or in recent years. And we just need to start creating a unified language. And it's clear, right? There is evidence that says, depending on the words we use to describe things, it changes our perception. And so I think cannabis is a perfect example of that.
David, can we get your book is must reading for every media person in America? Okay, because I cringe every time I hear the word marijuana. I also cringe every time I hear the word pot shops for dispensaries. Okay, I cringe and I get really upset. And it's one of the reasons why I keep this thing going, because I think that we've kind of shown over the last few years that we are relatively educated when it comes to this plan, and more importantly, the injustices in the industry. And it keeps us going. And let's cut right to the chase and start getting some opinions from you guys about really two of the biggest things that have happened in this industry this past year, and even in the last 2 or 3 weeks. We've had the Farm Bill of 2024 get voted on in the House, and we all know that we think that it's not going any further than that. But we also have the public comment period for the DEA, who continues to think that they're going to reschedule cannabis off Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act over to Schedule 3. Miggy, I know your opinion, but I'd like to get Tina's opinion first, and then we'll come back to you. Is that okay? Because I watch your show. I know how you feel. Tina, what's your feeling, first of all, about the move to Schedule 3? A, do you think it's going to happen? B, do you think it's good for the industry?
I think the move to Schedule 3 is excellent. I think that, first off, 280E is firstly, the most important thing is that all of these companies are going to be able to do write-offs. They're going to save a lot of tax money. And that's the biggest thing. I talked to a lot of people, and that was first and foremost on their mind. I just think that it's going to take too long. And I also think, quite frankly, I think that we're being pacified. I think that it's a baby step. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Why don't they just jump right to legalizing it across the board? That's how I really feel.
It sounds so
this is an open forum here, so that's how I really feel.
No. Miggy, you'd like to see that simplification of the industry too, wouldn't you?
Oh, ideally that'd be it. But David's new book should be hemp or cannabis, right? Like that's the merging that we're going to be happening coming up. I mean, the ignorance, language matters, and we keep calling things hemp and we keep calling it marijuana, but the only division is 0.3%. That's crazy.
And there's even talk now of bringing it up to 1%, although the hemp industry, we just had a member of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable on with us, really just wants it to be defined where it is, which continues to be that 0.3% of THC. And it's so interesting. We're sitting here and we're talking about percentage points of a cannabinoid in this plant that is the intoxicating cannabinoid in the plant. But there are hundreds of other cannabinoids in this plant that continue to kind of fly under the radar. Now everybody knows the CBD one is the one that doesn't get you high, and it has anti-inflammatory components. Well, guess what? It needs a little THC to actually be the most effective. That's called the entourage effect, guys, right? How am I doing so far, right? So all that being said, I go back to, David, I want to get your opinion on it as well. If it goes to Schedule 3, and the 280E clause, which has been an unjust clause for the industry since its beginning, and allows businesses to write off regular business expenses just like every other business in America. Okay, they made an exception for the cannabis space because after all, it's still federally illegal. Where do you think Schedule 3 is going to go? And I guess the other question I'd like to throw at you is, can you believe that we're actually in a time where cannabis has become a political pawn in our world? It's amazing to me that we're having open conversations about this plant now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, in some ways, I don't think it's the first time it's been used as a political pawn. I mean, that's what prohibition was about, to a large extent. But yeah, the real answer, the truthful answer is, I don't know what Schedule 3 will bring. I think everybody is pontificating. I have my thoughts about it. Whether that actually happens or not, who knows? I agree. I think if the 280E tax is affected, then sure, it should make margins greater. If margins are greater, hopefully there's more profitability. If there's more profitability, hopefully there's more investors, either doubling down or coming into the industry. That would be great to see. I think the bigger concern is, does craft cannabis still stay craft cannabis? Does big pharma come in and, mess things up? I'll say this. I'm not a big fan of big pharma for sure. I am a big fan of craft cannabis. But, and this may be a little controversial, the truth is our industry has not moved the needle as far as we want to move the needle. And, big pharma is all about lobbying and research and dosing and all the other things. Yeah, big money, big deal. I mean, we live in America. Come on, get over it. We should understand it's all about big money. That goes without saying. But the bottom line is that we should understand the context we're talking about this in. We understand it is about big money. But how about this? As not a fan of big pharma, wouldn't it be wonderful to see big pharma come over to the green side a little bit? Maybe to think about plant medicine in ways they've never thought about plant medicine. So again, I'm not a big fan of big pharma, but if we could get it to come over and leverage its strengths and its core competencies that God knows this industry could use a little help with, then maybe it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Time will tell.
Yeah. Miggy, go ahead. What do you think? Schedule 3, is it's just big pharma waiting in the wings, ready to scoop everybody up?
I mean, again, when we even talk, when we talk about parity, we people reference alcohol, right? And how many big distributors of alcohol are there out there? 3. Right. And so, like, even locally, Elysian Brewing got bought out by Anheuser-Busch. So you think you're buying this craft beer, but in the end, there's this big corporate structure. And as somebody who's about to get into business, it's not investors. It's not, we're going to have to try and find a bottom line and opening a store. That's all this is going to be. It's unfortunate that we have these limited markets, but I think, scheduling could create a pathway of just more access for us coming up, or even for the big guys. The hemp bill is really going to be the big one that if they get all the cannabinoids off, this is going to be a good thing. I think, as far as, like, for lack of a better word, normies, people who don't care about policy or legalization, because a lot of people think, they say Trump legalized it with the Farm Bill. Kind of did, because all the people that I ventured off into the cannabinoid space, right? Like growing hemp, you wouldn't have seen that before that. So it's a little risque, but we also had to identify this plant as, like, post-harvest, in my opinion, right? Like, not trying to make people like this has to be testing at 0.3%, but yet growing it for what it is. I mean, that'd be nice, ideally.
So they being the Republicans, did actually legalize the cannabis sativa plant with that Farm Bill of 2018. However, they opened up a Pandora's box. They had no idea what they were doing when they did it. And that's what I continue to harp on, is the the fact that our elected officials just don't want to do the due diligence and learn about this plan more than anything else. Look, at 2013, when I got my medical card, I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. And I discovered Green Flower, Max Simon's company, that's now in like 15 different university curriculums. And I learned as much as possible about this plant. And I'm still learning. In fact, and Tina, you'll laugh at this, I'm sure. I didn't know that there was a male plant and a female plant. I swear to God, I didn't understand it. And now, of course, I do understand it, but I don't ask me to tell one from the other. One has flowers and one doesn't. How'd I do? Did I do okay? Is that good? Is that right, guys? I mean, I think it is. All right. Tina, you're in Vegas, which to me, the adult playground, that's what it's called, right? And sure enough, you know, Massachusetts has had it on the law books for 6 years to open up social clubs, social cafes. They have yet to open up one. There's one private club that isn't, it's flown under the radar legally because it's a private club with a locked door and you have to ring the doorbell to get in. And then either you're a member or you're not, and you can become a member by paying a small fee. That's Summit Lounge. I should give them a plug. However, in Vegas, you've got it's open season for social clubs in Vegas. How many are open now? 3. Okay, so it's a very small season, but it's
there are only 3, yes, and one has been open for about 2.5 years, 3 years now. It's the one downtown called Noodaloo, and it's on tribal land. So you know they're on sovereign land, and it's a fabulous. It's great. It's the Sky Lounge. I mean, it must be on 2 acres. They've got outdoor, indoor, they've got upstairs, downstairs. They have drinks, they have infused drinks, they have everything you can possibly imagine to your heart's desire. You want a bong hit, you want a dab, you want a pre-roll. They have everything. They've got meetings. We do the Chamber of Cannabis meetings there, as a matter of fact. And then there's 2 other amazing lounges. Planet 13, they just opened their lounge called Dazed, and you have Smoke and Mirrors, which is also amazing. They just opened also, I believe, on March. It was the end of March that they opened. I've been to all of them.
So let me ask a question, because you know the prohibitionists are out there, always, everywhere. Has there been an increase in crime? Has there been fights in these cafes? And you guys, Miggy, you're laughing.
Zero.
Zero. Of course, zero.
None whatsoever.
And there's no alcohol mixed in with
none
cafes. We've separated out these two adult products, if you will.
Correct. And that's how Arizona does it too. They have to cap the liquor bottles. For example, the Clarendon Hotel here in Arizona is a true cannabis hotel. Yep. And so on the 5th floor, you can consume all of the rooms. If you're an overnight guest, you can consume inside of your room. But if you go down to the pool, they do have alcohol, but you cannot take your drink up to the 5th floor. And then there's other places in Arizona, and they'll cap the liquor bottles with a snow cone cap. and then you can consume cannabis in other locations, but they cap the liquor bottles.
Yeah.
And that's how it's done.
And again, I don't think anybody who has ever actually had alcohol, you should recognize the fact that you don't want to mix. I learned this very early, that if you add liquor to your cannabis high, you're getting an 8 times rush. And it's one of the reasons why I admit it, I go to bars. Oh my God, I'm over 21. I'm actually a responsible drinker. I have 1 drink and I nurse it the whole night, because every time you take a sip, when you're under the influence of cannabis, you're going to get a rush. You're going to get an 8 times rush. And that's what a doctor told me. So we know it must be true, right, Miggy? Good. I know you say whatever you'd like, Miggy, because I know you love to talk. Go ahead. Oh, are you muted?
I put myself on mute. Shit, as I was talking to myself.
That's perfect. That's a perfect segue. And you love to talk, but you have to actually turn the microphone on. Okay.
I pace myself, but you know, the reason why you have predominantly Washington and probably Colorado people talking, because we've seen the not even really touching base.
Colorado, I'm going to tell you right now, I've asked for a Colorado correspondent to every single person I know in Colorado. I even have a video on our YouTube channel soliciting a correspondent for Colorado. and we can't, are they snobs? Do they just think, because they're Colorado?
It's funny. Well, I mean, maybe it's the mountains blocking them off, but they being that we both came up at the same time, legalization wise, Washington State had medical for a good 10 years before recreational came out here. And the medical scene was amazing. We had farmers markets, all the stuff that you're talking about now was like this underground scene that you got your medical prescription, and it was like your backstage pass to a really cool concert. Like everywhere I went across the state, because I'm a traveling technician at the time, and I would be in East Side, North Side, and I would just get weed wherever I was at. It was amazing. Like I just walk my script in, and then sometimes you can do samples there, right? And then when the fun police took over, that's where the regulation stuff comes in. Like everybody's scared about scheduling 3, and I don't. It's just the first step, right? We're not done. There's so much more to do. And it's not going to change. People are still going to do business and make money.
By the way, we've been using this product illegally for 80 years. All right. Exactly. So now, David, this is the perfect segue. And you heard Miggy use the word recreational. I know you and I both agree about this term. It is adult use, Miggy, because recreational, again, I don't use Robitussin recreationally. I use it when I have a cough. Okay. It's a medicine. Okay. And it's an adult 21 medicine too, I might add. You can't go into a drugstore, Walgreens, or CVS and buy Robitussin if you're under the age of 21. So it's one of those words, however, this is why David wrote this. I know it is. Recreational versus adult use. Marijuana versus hemp. Right, David? I mean, what's in a word, right? But in this particular case, again, it just goes to we need to educate more and more people about the plant. Go ahead, David.
A lot is in the word. But having said that, first and foremost, I did not write this book to be the word police, right? That's not what this book is about.
Right.
This book is really communication 101, which is if we want to communicate with other people and build bridges, and those people don't believe what we believe or don't understand the words we use, what do? We change our language, right? If I'm speaking English to a French-speaking person and they don't understand English, my best bet, if I'm able to, would be to speak in French, right? So it's just important to understand the words. First, it's important to understand who we're talking to and what we're trying to convey to them. And then once we figure that out, then we use the right words to deliver it. Let me use this as an example. If I were to speak about gun control, just immediately by using those 2 words, I've already turned people off, a lot of people off. But if I spoke about responsible gun ownership, I could start to enter that conversation without turning people off before I even started talking. So I'll say this again. I'm not the word police, the cannabis word police. I'm certainly not that. 2, in determining who we're speaking with, and that determines the words we use. If those people are in the industry, if those people are our friends, if those people are close to us, we don't have to watch the words that we're using as we might with speaking to a middle-aged politician that we're trying to convince that cannabis legalization is the way to go. So, I've gotten some pushback, but I've also gotten some questions on LinkedIn, like, what do you think about the word weed? And I said, if you're speaking to somebody that understands the word weed and the context is right, and there's no continuation or supporting all the stereotypes that have been created over time, then great, use the word that you feel most comfortable with, but just be mindful of the words we use. And that's really what the book is about.
Excellent. And Miggy, I appreciate how you've been editing yourself with your words.
I mean, it's your house. I'm trying to censor myself. So
No. And I appreciate it. I don't mean to be the old funny daddy in the room either.
But this topic always gets you a little flustered, right? Like when I was first started writing about this blogging online 12 years ago, there was nobody talking about prisoners. There was nobody talking about the raids. It felt taboo to talk about that because you're like, encouraging, opposed to like, I was out there calling out law enforcement specifically and saying, you have a choice. At the time, Luke Scarmazzo, there's so many other people that were arrested and incarcerated time that, I was like, these were their only crimes, and yet there was no pathway to legalization. Medical just happened, and then they tried to do the pathways and still were arrested and incarcerated. So we still got a lot to work to do. I just did an interview with Frank Rogers, who's serving 11 years out of his 18 years. And he got kind of a double jeopardy thing just for weed. He ran a really good network.
Crazy. Look, I think we've made tremendous progress in the fact that we're now talking about it. We're talking about it openly. We have, 24 legal adult use states. We have 38 other states that have medical programs, so they've decriminalized it. We've got one of the most conservative states in the country, New Hampshire, on the verge of adopting an adult use legalization plan. And you want to find out more, watch this week's We Talk News and my interview with Tim Egan from the inside, because he's been involved with it for 5, 6, 7 years in that state. And here's the biggie. I didn't realize since 2019, 15 states are adult use legal. Since 2019.
Yeah.
I mean, it took how long for Colorado and Washington State to get it, to do it right? And here we are, we've made a tremendous amount of progress. I heard the president of the United States use the wrong word, David, but he used the word marijuana, okay? And he was basically saying what all the people that have advocated for this for years is no one deserves to be in jail for smoking or possessing this plant. It just doesn't make sense. And the fact that that is coming out of the words of a guy who was anti-drug for a long time, so was Kamala Harris. No, a lot of people don't like her. And I don't even want to get into the other guy because I'm fearful of what that might be. I'm very fearful of what that might be. And of course, everybody knows I'm from Massachusetts anyway. So I think people know which side of the fence I'm on.
America, though, it has like a short-term memory, right? Like legalization has been pushed for every year, all these steps, right? Even when I came on, there's only, I stepped on the shoulders of like Dennis Perron, right? And, all these other activists in California and other states too. Even Alaska had legalized cannabis for a while before. But, the message keeps getting pushed every year, which is necessary, right? Rescheduling is a must because it keeps the message going forward. You're old enough to remember, and I was just talking to somebody, one of my friend's kids, Vietnam. Like I grew up knowing like draft dodgers were bad people and like all the blue collar people, right? Whereas the last guy was a draft dodger. He was a joke because rich white guy gets out of getting recruited and everybody else has to. Yeah, I know I had to say it. But what I'm feeling with nobody's feeling this. No one's going like, this is the guy that's gonna like praise his military. Once always a bad person gonna be like that. You know what I mean? There's no changing.
No, I get it, and you're right. There's good and there's bad, and figuring out who's got which and what percentage and all that is what all of us as humans do on a regular basis. We profile, we point fingers, we label, and all of those things aren't very they're not conducive to future movement of the world, really and truly. We've lost the ability to compromise, and I blame, here I go again, I blame social media, because the consumer now is in charge of their use of media, production of media, and you can always find media that supports your opinion, and it just reinforces it. And it's another reason why we have such a division in this country right now. There's no doubt. You got, look, Fox is on one side, CNN is on the other side. That's not good.
Well, we're siloed, right?
Right.
Do you remember the time when, and this is the reason why we have Democrat Republican, because you need that kind of money to get that presence, and with the news, like during the Clinton trial, I remember losing all my TV just to watch the trial. I'm like, why? I don't care about this guy. Or at the time, I was young, didn't care about politics, but, you get older, you realize like it's pretty important, but you're right. Social media, the internet, we've all been siloed in our own little trains of thoughts. And,
and it's not good. It's just not good. And that's why we need people like David to enlighten us about the power of language. We need people like Tina who can tell me about there's hope in Las Vegas. There really is. I mean, when I think about that, I'm like, oh my God, this could actually happen in other cities and towns. That will be unbelievable. And the fact that Massachusetts has had this on the books for 6 years and they just can't figure it out. I mean, it blows my mind. Hey, look, guys, I love having different people from different parts of the country, different backgrounds to come in and talk openly about all these issues, because we have to do that. We have to start accepting the fact that it's here now. You should learn about it if you want to, and if you're curious about it, you definitely should learn about it. It's one of the reasons why I end all of my podcasts and all of my shows and all of my news basically with the same verbiage. It's a whole new world of weed. Use it responsibly, and most importantly, educate and learn about this. So David, Tina, and Miggy, thank you so much for joining us on a very special edition of We Talk News Weekday Talk. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but that's what it's going to be. It's going to be released not this Thursday, but next Thursday. And, we're starting to produce new content every day now and putting it out there, and it seems to be working. So we're going to keep that going. So for everybody on the We Talk News team, thank you so much for bearing with us. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, sharing, and all that stuff. I'm the PCM founder, Jimmy Young. Thank you. And remember, it is a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly.